I wanted to cover this topic a few days ago, actually, but it's interesting how news happens so quickly at times. We haven't had much in the way of Halo news really at all. And then out of nowhere, bam, we get a Halo blog. And then the next day, we get even more Halo news. So I'm going to be covering both things. First being the Halo Waypoint update on Halo Infinite. And as you guys know, pretty big fan of Halo. So I feel like this blog was written only for me. No, I don't believe that. What I do believe, though, is that 343 is continuing to struggle with the core essence of what Halo needs to be. And I've said this now for quite a while. I don't think I'm the only person, obviously, who feels that under 343's leadership, Halo has gone in a very weird place. And despite the fact that Joseph Staten has come back, I'm not entirely convinced that one man is going to be able to fix a lot of the far-fetched problems we've seen. Now, I want to first focus on how the message was told, then I will focus on the message. And how the message was told was in a gobbledygook blog that was 8,000 or 9,000 words long. Took me quite a while to read through. And it was basically a transcript of 4 or 5 people sitting around in a round table, not only reminiscing about the good old days, but also explaining in very detailed terminology what they do on a daily basis, how they do it, and what their vision is for Halo Infinite in the future. And while I do appreciate that type of information, the written word is not the place to convey it. That is absolutely a podcast. And what you basically read was a transcript of a podcast. Why didn't they just release it as it is, even if it's just a 5-minute video? Is beyond me. And to go a step further, let's not forget about the Dead Halo channel on the Xbox. Now, this was something that was way ahead of its time. It included all of the in-game clips. It included a lot of documentaries, including the Halo sprints, which were phenomenal to watch. Why this kind of information isn't being brought in that channel as a resurgence for data is beyond me. That channel is just so broken and dead, I don't understand. And it's a phenomenal way to get people back into the game, to get people excited. Now, say what you will about how Cyberpunk was actually released in a very broken state. But let's give major credit to CD Projekt Red for continuing to update everybody with really informative, really detailed YouTube videos, which became an event in their own right. And let's face it, all eyes on Halo Infinite if you were an early adopter of the Xbox Series S or X. You know as well as I do, this is going to be the game that defines this console. I'm not just talking about in 2020 or in 2021. I'm talking about this being the game. That is how important Halo is to the Microsoft brand and Halo Infinite in particular, because Halo 5 Guardians, although the multiplayer, in my opinion, is the best multiplayer that has ever existed in any game ever. Yes, I am going that far. We all know the story wasn't that great. And if you want to build up a good fan base, you need to have a story that people care about, because a lot of people don't even play the multiplayer. They just want the story. And Halo 5 Guardians was all over the place. Which brings me to my second point. That is in the way, not the message, the way it was told, the message itself. Specifically, a lot of discussion about the golden ratio, a lot of discussion about kind of the jobs that they do, and it wasn't really interesting, and it really didn't focus on the problems that Halo has had. And it's that they've really backed themselves into a very, very bizarre corner, particularly with this whole Cortana Guardians thing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense why they introduced so many new characters in Halo 5 Guardians, but they continue to promise that the story will go directly back to the Chief. It doesn't make sense what they're going to do, and that's what they need to focus on. Halo has never had a gameplay problem. Even the original Halo Combat Evolved, I'm not talking about the remaster, I'm talking about the original version, still plays very, very well. Yes, the graphics are dated. Yes, there are some nuances with the game that, modern shooters don't have to deal with. But let's face it, the reality is the core mechanics of that game are phenomenal. And they've only gotten better through each iteration of Halo, as they've added more weapons, as they've added more vehicles, as they've added items, taken items away, whatever. The core gameplay has always worked. So why did the Halo Infinite development team choose to spend so much time talking about the mechanics of the game is beyond me. That is not the problem. That has never been the problem. And we've seen a lot of iterations, by the way, of Halo games where weapons have cycled in and out. No, not weapons. Yeah, I guess a little bit, if you want to talk about like the rise and fall of the DR, digital marksman rifle, DMR, or the battle rifle. You want to talk about items coming and going out of Halo 3, or how Reach used items. Okay, I guess in that sense, but the core gameplay has been fine. Why they spend so much time to talk about that and what they call the golden triangle or the golden ratio, which is basically gun, grenades, and melee, is beyond me. That's not the problem. So that's where I think the biggest issue is. They need to understand what the issue is. And the issue is that right now, people are not invested in characters. People are not interested in the story. No one is sitting on a cliffhanger at the end of Halo 5 going, what's next? Everybody looked around and goes, well, that was really dumb. There's a few of us that jumped into the multiplayer and a few even smaller portion of us that now play pretty much exclusively Halo Master Chief Collection again, primarily because of the new content via the seasons, which I did a video on a couple days ago. That's actually why I'm playing Halo 3 specifically, working on getting some BR headshots. But that is the fresh content people care about. No one's sitting around going, man, I really hope Halo Infinite really addresses the problem of Cortana and the Guardians. No one's saying that because it was so weird. And as much as, a couple of us may have enjoyed Spartan Locke's company, a lot of people didn't. A lot of people wanted to play with the Master Chief and only deal with the Master Chief. And what happened to a lot of these ancillary characters that were built up over time? Well, I don't know. Now you got a bloated game with a lot of characters that you're going to have to figure out. You're either going to retcon everybody or whatever. These are the questions we need answered, and we're not getting those answers. So I think it's a major, major misstep on 343's part. And they've laid out, by the way, what the next few blogs are going to be. If you go back and look, they'd be like, okay, next month we're talking about this. And then the month after that, we're talking about this. All of which things may be interesting, but we're not talking about the elephant in the room. And that is the story. So that really needs to be fixed, I think, first and foremost. And I think there needs to be a lot more attention to that. Second, I think the format sucks. I think the format needs to be either a small podcast or a dedicated YouTube clip or, something along those lines to make it interesting for people to enjoy and people to consume in a lot better way. I guarantee you a lot of people saw that blog, maybe read the first paragraph, kind of scrolled down, maybe looked at a picture or two and noped out. Not a lot of people read it. I know they didn't. And that is not a way you're going to build an audience. So with that out of the way, I want to talk about the other problem that I have. And that was that they announced, which we kind of already knew, but they've made it a little more formal via, I don't say a statement per se, but that the original shotgun is going to finally be retired, at least for this game, at least initially, in favor of the new automatic shotgun that they have, the Bulldog. And I think this is a horrible idea. A shotgun in of itself in any game is a pretty iconic weapon. I think when people think of shotgun combat, they probably think of like a Doom or a Quake, or at least, and I think most people would agree, the primary weapon for beating Halo was the shotgun. That if you played that game and you're running down hallway after hallway of Flood, everybody wanted a shotgun. That was kind of the iconic weapon. So you're basically making a game that is a quote-unquote spiritual love letter, at least in art style by their own accord, to the original Halo Combat Evolved. They're going to make a game that is going to be very stylized in Halo Combat Evolved type graphics. We're going to kind of redo Master Chief's armor to kind of sort of make it look like the old Halo. Okay, I'm fine. I'm on board with that. And then what are you going to immediately do is you're going to divorce yourself from one of the most iconic weapons in the game. It's very bizarre. Now, one of the things that I love about a game like Call of Duty, and why, in my opinion, Modern Warfare and Black Ops are some of the best shooters in the planet, is because they've realized that people like guns that progress game after game after game. The Halo universe is definitely large enough for multiple shotguns. Halo universe is definitely big enough for every weapon that has ever existed, from the pistol, the SMG, even different variants of the AR if they want to take it that far, down to the classic battle rifle, down to the DMR, sniper rifle, you name it. The universe is big enough. And when you start talking about sandbox design and you start talking about what Jeff Statton's role is in the company, Joseph Statton's role in the company is, and how he's really going to kind of oversee, the future of Halo, particularly from a creative standpoint, and kind of like what's next for the franchise and everything. Taking away an iconic weapon is silly. Now, does that mean Halo Infinite's going to stink because you don't have the shotgun? Of course not. Does it mean that Halo Infinite is going to, really tick a lot of people off? Yeah, I think it is. Because people are like, hey, wait, why isn't there a shotgun? Like, you have all these other guns that, by the way, we didn't ask for. But okay, I get it. The war has continued to evolve. The futures continue to evolve. The UNSCs continue to evolve. And there may be a canon reason why some of these guns do not exist anymore. Similar to like how the Retro Lancer came into existence versus the traditional Lancer with the chainsaw blade, because the government was running low on fuel because the war was rough, so they had to go back to kind of basic weaponry. Hey, let's just take a blade and basically like weld it onto the end of this gun, and there you go, we have a weapon. I get that. There was a lore reason behind it. It made sense. It progressed the story. It was a fun gun to play with. But as you go on to future Gears games, guess what? You can choose between either Lancer. So that's what I mean about the universe is plenty big enough. And I think this is a major, major oversight. Now, here's what I think is going to realistically happen. I think of the core game, which they have been working on for far too long. When that core game eventually comes out, hopefully it's good. We'll find out. Hopefully the core game's good. They've already figured out what they want the weapon balance and the weapon drops to be. I think what you're going to end up seeing is this is going to be patched in at a later date. It's going to come out just like Halo 5 Guardians did when they did their monthly multiplayer updates, and they continue to expand on the multiplayer and they continue to add in more things. I think you're going to eventually see some sort of update, whether it's an infected mode or whether it's some kind of throwback mode, and then that is how the shotgun is going to be back reintroduced into a multiplayer standpoint. But I think that they are really struggling right now with what the single player game is going to be, not just in terms of weapons, not just in terms of balancing, but an overall pacing, look and feel. And I feel like maybe 343 is just a little too skittish to take any time to go back and try to tweak any of that. So I think they're going to leave it alone as is. And I think that's why they're so adamant right now that there will be no shotgun, because they didn't really design for that. But again, if Halo is this great sandbox, and if they have been preserving the ratio, as they like to call it all the time, then there is plenty of room for that weapon. I know it sounds like I'm harping on a lot here just over the shotgun, but the reality is this. Everything I've been reading, everything I've been seeing about this game continues to spell disaster. Whether it's in their branding, whether it's in the messaging, whether it's in how they deliver the message or the message itself. It seems like 343 continues to stumble over themselves in just about every possible way. And it's incredibly frustrating as a super fan of the series, because we deserve better. And honestly, Halo is such a fun franchise. And it's such a great franchise. I'm still playing Halo 3 to this day. It's got legs. It matters to people. So give it the story, and give the people and give the franchise the respect and the time it deserves. And I just feel like 343 just cannot do this. You look at Xbox Studios as a whole. I've talked about this a lot on War Never Changes. And the reality is they're just not getting it. And I think this is going to be yet another example of that. Leave a comment below. Let me know if you think I'm on point or way off point. I'd like to hear from you guys. I continue to enjoy playing the Master Chief Collection. I still play it daily. I love Season 5. I can't wait to dive back in and continue to grind and unlock more weapons. But for today, the video is going to have to close. Hope you guys found this informative, or at least makes you think about 343's involvement or Halo Infinite's future as a whole. Again, leave some comments below. With that, take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.